Melvin, we want to start. Firstly, I know we know Bex isn't here, but tell us a little bit of, how you guys met. A couple of minutes, how you met, first impression, or your first impression, because she can't speak for herself right now. But
She
you tell
thought I
us.
was amazing. She actually chased me. She hunted me down, and
Yeah,
that was it. She told me I couldn't marry anybody else because she didn't find another more handsome man on the planet.
I see.
That's my husband's
So
story as well.
Yeah, funny enough, we have the same story, Melvin.
no, so I'm originally South African, and I was working with an organization called Youth for Christ, and my wife Rebecca's from Bedfordshire in the UK, and she came over on a missions trip to South Africa, and I was running a team that was working with young people, and our teams joined, and that's how we met. We met on mission. I always say to people, if you want to find your wife, go on mission. Not just actually mission, but be on mission for Jesus, and you'll find your wife. So if there's anyone out here that's still wanting to find God's partner for you, go on mission, be on mission,
Nice.
be on His mission, and He'll send the right one. But just make sure you're on mission. That's the key. So that's how we met, and yeah, and then she came back to the UK. I continued in South Africa, and for 18 months we wrote letters to each other. There was no emails back then. There was no FaceTime and WhatsApp videos and stuff like that. It was literally letters. We've actually got a box full of letters that we wrote to each other, which
Wow.
pretty amazing. Yeah, so that's kind of, and then I came over, and actually that's when I met Pastor Nick. 'Cause she worked in Pastor Nick's one of his previous churches
Oh,
as the
okay.
youth worker in the church that he was the pastor of.
Oh, okay.
And I came to visit, and when I came to visit, I stayed with Pastor Nick in 1998 in their
Oh.
house, and then I got a job as the youth pastor when Pastor Nick moved on.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
yeah. So I know Pastor Nick a long time. Stayed in his house. He married us actually. So yeah, 21 years this year.
Wow.
21 years. Woo!
Yeah,
Very good, very good.
in a few weeks.
In a few weeks, very good. Also, it was a long distance relationship at first, and that's got to be difficult, right? Or was it?
Yeah, it was very difficult. Yeah, it was challenging, obviously, because being in the same being and not being in the same country was meant that we had to communicate via letters and the odd telephone calls because back then it was really expensive. But I think one of the powerful things about that time was that it caused us to really seek God through our relationship a lot. And I'm going to talk about this later if it comes up, but we fasted and prayed quite a bit during our marriage, and our scripture that we held on to is Matthew 6:33. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and everything else will be added unto you. And we drove ourselves through that difficult period with that scripture.
Yeah,
Fasted and prayed every Thursday together, and God unlocked some doors for us, but it was
yeah,
challenging. I had a bit of a jealous streak, so that was not healthy. It
yeah,
didn't help the marriage at all. The relationship, and even into our marriage, actually, the first couple of years, jealousy really consumed me, and I
yeah.
had to get some deliverance from that. Really,
Praise
yeah.
God.
Mhm.
All right. Well, let's jump right into the
Let's do it.
convo. So, how are you both different, or are you both different when it comes to finances? Are you all on the same wavelength? Do you have a different way that you view money compared to your wife, Rebecca?
Um, now, no. I think 21 years later, thank God, we've kind of come to uh, quite a good oh, my door's about to close. We come to a good understanding of where we feel we're in a healthy, balanced way of viewing our finances, and we can handle that. Um, are we different? Very. I come from a home where my mum and dad were pastors, so I come from a home that lived a lot by faith.
Yeah,
So everything was, we hardly had finances. In South Africa and in the culture that we came from, pastors weren't paid well, so mom and dad fought to really survive. There were days we'd have no money, no food in the cupboard, and I'm not exaggerating. There were days where we'd have nothing at home, and mom would just say, "You have to pray, and God will provide." And we'd get a knock on the door and open the door, and literally this happened twice. Knock on the door, open the door, and there's no one there, but there's a veranda full of food.
Wow.
There's a porch full of food. Like I'm
Wow.
talking meat, cheese, butter, bread,
Wow.
vegetables, rice, everything. And then there was another time we had nothing and someone just turned up with bags of meat that someone had bought us a whole sheep and they cut it up into pieces. So
Wow.
we had meat. So I come from that. Bex's mum and dad, her dad worked incredibly hard to put all three of his children through private school. They come from India. They came over. It was the classic thing. Bought a corner shop, but really their business grew. And so Bex comes from a home where she got whatever she wanted. You
Yeah.
know, whatever Doc Marten shoes she wanted as a teenager, she got it. She wanted the latest jacket, she got it. I come from a family where you went to someone's house and got a jacket that was secondhand with holes in it, and it didn't fit you, and it was a girl's jacket, but you had to wear it anyway. So it was just kind of that was life.
Yeah.
Therefore, that affected our view of finances. Funny enough, when we got married, the person that was more giving, and not in a negative way, but was more free with finances was myself, whereas Bex actually was a little bit more, we need to think about this. Is that really what God is saying? Whereas if I saw someone who had no food, I'd be like, God's telling us to bless them. And she'd be like, God's not spoken to me, so we need to wait. So funny, although we had different
Yeah.
upbringings, we had different views on what we do with our money.
So did that cause some issue? How did you take that?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I think one of the things, the big thing it did, which is where this is, I'm speaking for myself and my negative view of Bex through that, was there were times where I just felt we needed to give, regardless of the fact that we had nothing,
Yeah.
and I would use words like there's a lack of faith, and actually by saying that, I am declaring over my wife that she doesn't have faith, rather than processing with her what her view on finances was. And I think that was the major shift in that. The other thing that caused issues in our marriage regarding finances, I'm a pastor, we love Jesus, and generally financially we're not remunerated as well as say a dentist is, and Bex is a dentist. So in the early years of our marriage, quite I felt like my manhood was challenged because she was paid more than me. And I felt like I couldn't make any financial decisions because she earned more money than me. I felt like whenever she was talking about money, it was an attack on me. And so I had to really journey my insecurity around that until I got a revelation of actually what what our vows actually mean. What's mine is yours and what's yours is mine. Really getting a true understanding of that.
Yeah.
And so it caused a lot of tension. I used to question her understanding of finances, questioned her faith, questioned whether or not she believed God would provide. So it was really negative from my perspective,
Yeah.
using spiritual, yeah, it was negative, spiritually very negative.
Well, it's interesting. You said you talked about the manhood being challenged, and I don't think she was doing that. I mean, I don't know her, but I don't think she was doing that intentionally. But we have, and we know people that do, sort of like, the husband is earning less than the wife, and sort of like the wives use that over the husband's head. And of course,
Mm,
you can see that by, in both cases, the husband can seek to dominate the wife.
mm,
But when we have the wife earning more than the husband and showing that, flaunting that, vaunting that, um, that's definitely going to knock the guy's manhood and his ego and so on. But should that be a problem, though, Melvin? Should that be a problem?
Not at all. And I think, what I've come to understand is if we're both focusing on God's call in our lives, God facilitated our marriage and our home and our financial setup so that we could fulfill the call that He'd placed on our lives. And when I had a better understanding of actually by Bex being able to bring more finances in, it releases us to keep doing what God had called us to do. And I had a better view of the joint work on our finances. I think Bex never lorded it over me. I think, if anything, she was super careful to make sure that I didn't feel insecure about it. And until I vocalized it and realized it, I realized and then vocalized, only then do we attack the reality of my insecurity.
Mm.
And then I had a revelation. So I think it's having that communication. I think, from what you said there, Ronnie, I think a man can lord it over women as much as a woman can lord it over a man. So I think it works both ways. I don't think it's just that. I think the issue wasn't necessarily my manhood. I think it was insecurity. So
Mm.
so that was not the issue. And why I was able to do that was because um, my dad never really lived like that. So it was easy for me to shift mindset quickly. So I
Right.
realized that I was not holding a family value or a family culture. I was holding a world value and a world culture. So I needed to shift that off quickly and kind of get that off myself. That makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. And interesting you even said that because you know we are looking at marriage and we cannot look at marriage, and I think I alluded to this last week. We can't look at marriage without looking at the creator of marriage and what marriage
100%.
was supposed to look like and is supposed
Yeah.
to look like. And today, what I see as well, and I'm sure you probably seen it as well, and our audience here, but we the world's way of looking at marriage seems to be not seems to be it's like in the church and into the mindset of believers. But if we have the mentality of the oneness, they too has now become one.
One.
So whether Liz is earning more than me or I'm earning more than her, it's one.
100%.
It doesn't matter because we have we have the one goal, the one aim, the one vision, one purpose, and we are going together. It's not Liz, with her money over there and I with my money over here. Because the truth of the matter is sometimes the in terms of how much we make, that doesn't always remain, the man earning more or the woman earning more. That sort of shifts, right? That at times throughout life, different seasons.
Yeah, it does. And I think the more you earn, the more tax you got to pay. So actually, the more you earn is not, it sometimes becomes irrelevant. There were seasons when we didn't realize how much of tax we needed to keep away in the early years of our marriage. And Bex was young as a dentist. And we suddenly realized actually when you're running something as a sole trader, as running something as a business person, it's not just I bring in 70 grand, that means I'm 70 grand rich. No, it means that you've got overheads to pay, you've got et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas I'm just bringing in salary, but I'm not paying any of that kind. So although she may say I'm bringing this in, but actually the outgoings is even more. So when you weigh it up, there were times when we realized actually my salary and Bex's salary was quite compatible. And so you kind of, if I was working at it from that perspective, I'll come back to what you said, and I think one of the things that I think we wanted to bat around and wanted to really zone in on in the conversation was what is the issue and why does it create so much of issues in marriage? Statistics are telling us that actually finances is one of the highest causes of marriages splitting up, and the difference between infidelity and financial stress is not a lot. So when you think about it from that context, that somebody cheating on a spouse and a couple going through financial difficulties has the same outcome as each other, it's quite huge.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Um, it is, it's crazy. And I come back to that scripture on it of what I shared earlier is Matthew 6:33. Seek ye first the kingdom of God. And I think the reason people break marriages are are separating because of financial issues is not a case of finance, it's a case of focus. Matthew 6 gives us clear direction. Seek ye first the kingdom of God. If a husband and a wife are both seeking God first before everything else, everything follows after that. In other words, God, God is the focus, and your love for Him is first, then your love for each other, then your love for your kids. Your
Mm,
finances follows that way. People separate in their marriages because one person or both are not focused on God and then everything else. So money becomes a problem. So if your focus is me as the husband coming into the marriage, my focus is I don't want to serve God. I just want to attend church. I want to make I want to make £100,000 by the end of the year, and then I want to retire at 54. But you never had that conversation with your wife to be before that. She comes in and says, "I want to serve church. I want to give my tithes. I want to give to compassion, etc., etc., etc." You've got two people, different views and value systems.
yeah.
So the money is not the problem. It's actually the focus. It's actually the
Mm,
lack of communication. It's
mm,
the lack of vision in the same direction.
yeah.
Got to be a joint vision. Got to be a focused vision on what God's called us to do.
So, of course, the title of this is called "Things I Wish I Knew Before I Got Married."
Yeah,
So, and of course, we know we also have married people in here, and that's fine because we are still learning. We are on a journey. But for those
yeah,
that haven't been married yet,
yeah,
um, single with a desire to be or engage, I hear you saying that this sort of thing doesn't just happen. This is a focused effort in intentionally communicating and having a discussion around money. What do we think about money? How do we look at money? How do we focus? What's you know is
yeah.
that what you are saying?
Yeah, I think topic is what did I know? Or what's it? What I wish I knew before I got married.
Yeah,
I think number one, I would have liked to have known how difficult emotionally it would be when you've got no money. When we first got married, Bex was actually studying, so she wasn't working. I was a youth pastor.
yeah,
I'd just come into the country, and so I wish I'd known how much I would struggle to like the woman that I loved
yeah,
when we had no finances.
mm,
I hope that makes sense.
yeah,
The love wasn't missing. Don't get me wrong, we loved each other, but I did not like her when we went shopping and she didn't want to buy a burger because she didn't want to waste money. I loved my wife, but when we went to Next and I wanted to buy a jacket and I couldn't, and she said, "Can you wear last year's one?" I didn't like her at that point, and that created pressures. If that makes sense. So
yeah,
I wish that someone would have sat us down and sat down and said, "This is how you budget. This is how you give. This is how you serve. This is what you do with your savings. Have you thought about diversifying your income? I wish someone had talked about what about making money that's soft income, so you don't work hard for the money, but money was working for you.
yeah,
I wish somebody would have sat down and
yeah,
processed that kind of stuff for me. I wish someone would have said to me, in ministry is great, but what about if you wrote a book about your life that you could then throw online and then you could create some money from that? So it's those kind of things I think
yeah,
would have really helped us. I wish we would have been smarter and found out more about what it's like to be a business person
Yeah.
going into it. It is all about preparation. I think
Yeah.
scripture is clear, isn't it? Luke 14:28, when he talks about if you want to build a tower, won't you first sit down and estimate? Won't you sit down and plan? Won't you sit down and
Yeah.
budget? Won't you sit down and put structure before you actually execute? Does that
But
make
what?
sense?
Yeah, yeah, makes perfect sense. And I think it's not only do we, because we have the planning and the preparation part of things, but like yourself, nobody never sat us down and help us to prep and prepare pertaining to money, pertaining to finances. We prep and we talk about different things. We talk about, I don't know, the roles of, husband and wives and, things of that nature, but finances, I was only, when I met my wife, she has really, remember I said to you guys, the brains behind the operation is usually the wife. All right. She is the one that sort of shift my thinking into budgeting,
Right.
into business, into planning, structuring, having a sort of a system in place. When she met me, my life was just chaotic.
I can tell the story. He used to.
Okay, not okay.
Yeah, please do.
He used to leave the like his his let's say his bills like all in on the table in a line, so he doesn't forget about what to pay. And then he will just, if he will just take money from here, borrow there, and then come back and then take that, like a circle of, like I used to say, like, what?
A vicious
So
cycle.
in our culture, we call it you borrow from Peter to pay
The
Paul.
people.
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
just couldn't to me, I was like a genius. I was like a genius, with things a bit short. Okay, I just take this one and pay this one this month, and so on and so forth. And I had to have it physically in front of my face, because out of sight, out of mind. But when the Lord has, finally thought, Ronnie, I had enough of you on that, and he gave me, my lovely wife here now. She brought in system, she brought in plan, she brought in budgeting, she brought in, and this is, there's this poll I read recently, Gallup poll. In doing us in their research, only 32% of married couples actually have a budget, Melvin.
Wow.
That's a very low amount. So when you don't have a budget, some of the people here online probably could relate. I can definitely relate. Without a budget, you just don't know where you stand with money. Money comes, money go. You don't know what you have. You don't know how much you spend. You just up in the air. But this brought some order and some structure to my life and to our home. And I wish somebody had spoke to me about that at the beginning, as you said, pertaining to money and how to manage money. Because as you said as well, a lot, you look up any you go online and you look up reasons why couple divorce or split up. Money is usually on the top two, sometimes neck and neck with adultery, but it's always up there. And that tells us something. This is a huge issue.
Yeah. Listen, if you want to, if you're a business person and you want to grow your business, you have to have reserves in your bank at some point. So in order to do that, you have to budget and you have to create a system in order to do that. And there's also a period where you have to sacrifice a little to have big gains in the future. And so you got to save, you got to spend, you got to give. And that was kind of my mum's words to me when I was a child. She said, give, save, spend. And she said, do it in that order. Give, save, spend. So tithing is important, and that's got to be a part of your budgeting plan. Generosity is important. That has to be a part of your budgeting plan. So I remember times when I wanted to just be generous, but we didn't have the budget for it. And so we had to process that and think, well, you've got to create different accounts, different budget structures in order to live the life you want to live. So you've got to go and do that. And I think it's really important to understand budgeting. But here's what I think is really important, guys, is many people that are in debt have no ability to budget. So there's some people that are in thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds in debt and can't budget. They actually don't budget, not because they don't want to, but because they don't have the ability to. There's a great tool online, and if I don't know if I know you recommend some books through the sessions, but there's a tool called the Debt Buster online. It's a guy. If you want to take this name down, his name is Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey. It's called the Debt Buster tool, and basically it's a program. You put in your debts, put in everything into the system, and it helps you to navigate how to get out of debt. And he says if it takes you 5 years to get out of debt.
That Buster, you said?
Debt Buster, yeah. By Dave Ramsey. Helps you to get out of debt. And he says like debt is like a whirlpool. It's just constantly spinning. And so sometimes I think a lot of Christians, especially in churches where we talk about debt being a negative thing, which it is, but we almost come across and we use it as, at times it can be quite judgmental how we talk about it. So I think we've got to be careful how we speak about it when we're talking to people that are in debt. It's like anybody in any form of struggle. When you talk to them in a way that makes them feel bad, they'll feel bad.
Yeah.
Then they don't want to talk to you about it anymore. So whatever reasons we get into debt, we are there. So I want to tackle two things. Yes, budget. But if you're in debt, you need to get out of debt. I had a guy come to me once and say I was in debt. And I said, so talk to me. I mean, he wasn't about £20,000 debt. And as we were talking, I said, what do you have in your house that you can get rid of? And he looked at me like I was crazy. So he said, what do you mean? I said, well, is your marriage important? Yes. Is your daughter important? Yes. Is your finances killing us? Yes. If that's the most important thing, then you need to get rid of what you can to get out of debt. Turns out he had a watch for about £5,000 that he was holding on to. I said, why are we not getting rid of the watch? Oh, because I really like it. And I spent a long time saving to get it. I said, well, but now you're in debt. And he didn't get rid of the watch and he didn't see what I was saying. So if debt is an issue, if you have to downgrade life for a short period of time to get yourself back to where you want to be, downgrade. Sell that car that's got air conditioning and get a car that you open the windows. Downgrade the house if you need to. Get rid of the big TV and get a smaller one. Do you really need one TV that talks to you? Probably not. Do you know what I mean? Like there's stuff that is essential and there's stuff that we just want. Get rid of the wants for a period.
Yeah.
I promise you, if you do it that way with prayer, and here's the key, accountability. Many people stay in debt because they think they're the only ones and they're afraid to tell people, especially their spouse. And then when sometimes it's both that stay in that place. And I feel like I've talked a lot there. But I wanted to just clarify that sometimes it's hard to budget when you're in debt. And we need to understand that sometimes people come into debt because of maybe their past life wasn't with Jesus.
Yeah.
And they find Jesus, but they've not managed the finances. Now they're married, and that's putting pressure on the marriage. Does it make sense?
Yeah, perfect sense. And I for people, because that I think you are describing me as well before. So what I came in, I didn't know. You don't know what you don't know. So as a result of that, of course, I had a wife that came in, and she just being around her and in her presence, and she's speaking to me, and I'm hearing what she is saying. Immediately, my thoughts are being sort of expanded, and I'm realizing what I didn't know that I need to know. So then, we started reading, and we, just being around that type of environment and so on. So the people who in debt, what would you recommend for them to get the information that they come out of debt and the help? Because for me, the Bible talks about, just the knowledge. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. And if you don't know, you just don't know. So, me personally, something like this here that we're doing now in a marriage seminar, I think this is an excellent way for our thoughts to be expanded as we hear different thoughts, as we hear different, experiences. Our minds are stretched. We begin to hear something, and of course, what we hear, we live on what we hear, what we know, and what we learn, and then we implement that. Hopefully, we implement what we hear.
So I think there's many ways to kind of process it and to deal with it. I think you have some people that are just unwise spenders. I think you have some people that are just, and then you get some people that are addicted to spending. So it's depending where you're at. If you're in the category and the bracket of addiction, then you definitely need help, like anyone, like a drug addict would need help, or an alcoholic would need help. You need some desperate intervention, because you could be killing your marriage. Potentially, a whole generation of people is going to be affected by it. So you got Christians and Poverty. That's CAP.
Yeah.
They are a brilliant organization, which I'm sure you guys have heard of.
Yeah.
The problem is we don't pick up the phone, or we don't send that email because of one issue, and that's pride.
Yeah.
One issue, pride. But here's the deal: pride is killing our marriages. Pride is killing another generation. Pride is causing a generation that should be going to university debt free to have to go to university in debt. So, and then have more debt, and then get married in debt. So if we can navigate that and really get some help to step that up, I think it's really important. I think the biggest thing in a marriage is, does the husband or the wife know my thoughts on finances? Does the husband and the wife know my vision for our future and your vision for our future? Is it together? Because God brought us together. So is that working together? I don't believe we should be having separate accounts and we must never know what's in the other person's account. We're called to union. We're called to be one. We're called to live together. So we have many accounts, but that's strategic accounts. We have business accounts, ISA accounts, savings accounts, spending accounts, holiday accounts, etc., etc., etc. So we have got many, but it's not that I don't know. It's that I know, but we have one account which runs our home. The rest of it is because I get paid from a different source. Bex is a dentist. She gets paid from a different source. She's got a business to run. So financially, it's sense for her to have a business account. It doesn't mean that I don't know about it. It means that that's strategic. So those are kind of things that we need to be open about. Do we know if you've got a secret bank account that is not you saving to buy a Tiffany's bracelet, then there's something wrong.
Well,
right?
you touched on a point. You touched on an area that I actually want to get into right now, actually.
Okay.
But before we get into that, I don't know. I just want to throw out. Anybody have any questions thus far for
Well,
Pastor
we've been
Melvin?
talking for 45 minutes. I can't believe that.
Yeah.
Get a pastor in the room. They can talk, you know.
Yes, Patricia. Patricia have a question for us because.
Hi.
Hello,
Hi,
Patricia.
Hi, I'm for the Osana Church. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi, Liz. I have one question because I'm single mother for a long, long time, almost 10 years. I do alone my finance and everything. Now I have my boyfriend, and he's here. Andrew, I don't know where he is. He's here. And I need some recommends because when I gonna be together, married, I think it's gonna be very difficult for me put the account together because I do it everything now, and I think I need some recommendation about it.
Okay, so can we just to clarify, Patricia, it's going to be a bit difficult, or you think it's a bit difficult for you to join the accounts, and why is that exactly? Why is that?
Yeah, because now if I need to do the same account, bank account together, I'm scared, I'm afraid I can't be confident. I don't know.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
got you. Okay, understood. Very good. I'm glad you asked that question, Patricia. Thank you so much. Melvin, this is not an uncommon thing. It's not uncommon at all. People, and rightly, sometimes rightly, so people are scared of joining together with a potential spouse. Maybe they are accustomed to being in charge of their life, their own circumstance. Sometimes they are aware that this person may be a bit too spendy. So they're a bit fearful in joining. So what would you recommend?
I think, Patricia, let me first say thank you for being honest and vulnerable. I think that's a very brave question to ask, so thank you very much. And secondly, what I will say is thank you for being honest with your fear. And I think the truth is taking aside the reality that you're a single mom and you've been a single mom for a long time. The reality is you guys are getting married. If you're going to get married, you got to have complete full disclosure. That's what I'm trying to find. Full disclosure. So what that means is here's where my finances at. This is where Andrew's finance is at, and how are we going to bring that together? I think, if I'm honest with you, I personally think it should be a joint thing. You got to work out a way to bring your finances to a point where you're working at it together. You've been doing this for a long time by yourself, so I understand the fear. And it must feel scary. I don't know what that feels like. I can only imagine. But marriage is about two people working together, and the weight of it, of you carrying this for a long time, potentially you've got someone now that's going to help you do that. So you got to look at it, shift your focus onto provision rather than fear. This is God's provision to make your life work in a healthier way, rather than you trying to protect what you've been protecting for a long time. So my advice is, I think you do need to. I would firstly do pre-marriage counseling. Definitely do that. So not just about your finances, but about everything. So about each other, about family, about holidays, all of that stuff. So you do premarital counseling, and in that you then do a big section on finances.
Yeah.
And what I would do is start fresh, bring everything together, focus on Jesus and his calling on your lives, and then work out your finances through that way. It's about focus. That's what I said earlier.
Yeah. I'll underscore that as well. It's important that the premarital, this is where the premarital counseling is very important. This is where it's vital, because we begin to talk through things that we may not necessarily have in our own thoughts, with you and the boyfriend and the girlfriend, or the engaged couple going into to be married. There are just some things you just don't know, and you don't know what you don't know. And hopefully the pastor or the counselor will bring up some potential things for you to be aware of. For example, I would also just touch on the fear aspect of it, Patricia. I don't know if that fear comes from a place of, I don't know, maybe you see your parents, had some issues there. So I don't know, one of the parents struggled because they put the monies together and one took advantage or all that type of thing. I don't know where it stemmed from, but you don't know that that's going to be your story. So, it's getting married, as Melvin is saying, it's really a oneness. You are saying to this guy and he is saying to you that we are going to become one, and that includes finances. Now, how we deal with the finances, definitely that's where the communication and the discussion comes in, and the system. So Liz wanted to share something on the systems.
I think it's also that is the the understanding of when we become one, and then we put our money together. But the confusion and the conflict comes when, okay, I'm going to put my money in one account, you're going to put in one account. What do we do with that money? How do I know how much I need to spend from that account of money? That is the lack of financial education, because we just think getting married is having one account, put everything in there, and that's it. So if I want to buy a jacket, a 200-pound jacket, I need to get from that money, and then what shall I do? You see, so that is the fear that comes in there as well, though. I don't know what to do. How are we going to manage that money? So if we have the understanding of what Pastor Melvin said, having one account where you're going to put all your money for the house, covering bills, you cover, bills, basically, all the things that is from mortgage, rent, all the household. Then we have another account, which is savings. Then we have another account, which is giving. We have another account, holiday. We have another. So you can have different accounts. And we have a system as well, something that I've learned a few years ago from a financial coaching, that, the allowances that each spouse can have. For example, if we put our money for the household in one account, and then we separate the savings and the investments and everything, then, okay, this amount of money goes to your account, your personal account. This is your allowance. You do whatever you want with that money. You don't have to discuss with me, how are you going to spend that money? And now I am going to have my own allowance as well from the main account. Let's say, I don't know, £100 a month. So I'm going to have that money in my account, and I can spend that money however I want to spend the money. So in that way, we avoid that conflict on, okay, you touching the house money. Why did you spend that if that money was supposed to be for the mortgage, for example? You spend that in something else that it wasn't supposed to be. So then if you have, everybody has their own accounts with their allowances, and then we don't know, we need to know how much we have in the investments, in the savings, so we are accountable. So I really go with the idea that you have, Pastor Melvin, on knowing how much is in each account. But I think the fear goes away once you understand that. Once you have that knowledge on, okay, we are one, we're going to put our money in one, and we need to work towards something. It's not just putting money in there.
And that as you said, that sort of drives, the not knowing, because you will get that. I know people that arguments about that. Okay, I'm working. If I'm working, why should I be, handcuffed into, I can't touch this money. I work 5 days a week, 6 days a week, long hours. We tell me I can't buy my jacket. I like a jacket. I want to buy it, or the wife, I like this handbag. Why can I not buy this handbag
She might like the jacket as well.
Yeah, or to go with my new shoes,
Yeah.
So for us, and this is not the only system, because there are different systems out here, but that's where the communication and the conversation comes in learning and seeing which best works for you. And for us, we use that system where, all the money is coming. We all have, we know about it. We know the accounts. There's no secret accounts, none of that. However, we have little allowances, so to speak. So, and by the way, she's the one that gives me the allowance. I
give the allowance with a budgeting, you know.
So she budgeted. I just bring her, I give her the money, and then she write, okay, here's your allowance, and she will have her allowance. Now she is free to spend whatever she wants. She don't need to ask or have a conversation with me about what she's going to spend that money on, because that's dedicated and delegated. That's dedicated for her, and mine, you know, same sort of thing. So with that system worked for us, and that's one way. But Melvin, I want to come into something you touched on, and you hinted on, is the separate accounts and the different accounts. Some people, again, these are some of the reasons why, you know, or the symptoms of the divorcing and the separation. Some people, they have secret accounts. Some couples hide money, you know, and you hear it all the time. When you look at anything pertaining to, you know, money conflict, that usually comes up at some point. Why would that be an issue when people start hiding money? What does that say, and why do you think that is?
Well, I think any secret is unhealthy in a marriage about anything. If you're secretive about your relationship, if you're secretive about eating, if you're secretive about the time you spend, secretive about, so money is not any different. The reason for it is because my question would be, why would you want to keep that secret? Unless I'm saving to surprise my wife for her 50th birthday. That's a healthy secret. But if I'm saving because I just wanna, it shows that I don't trust. And that's the big problem for me.
Yeah.
It's an issue of trust. It's not the fact that you are being wise with your finances. It's the fact that you don't trust your spouse to not tell them that you've got all of this stuff, that you're trying to accumulate money. Why are you trying to accumulate that? Why don't we do that together? Now, I've got an account that I put money into every month. That's a savings account, but it's only I put that money in there. Bex doesn't put money into that account, but she knows I've got that account.
Yeah.
But sometimes she forgets, and then every now and again I'll just be like, "Oh, I've got that X amount in there. We could use that." And she'll be like, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that." So it's not that it's a secret, but it's where I use. So when my salary comes in, I tithe. I put into our joint household account. I put into a savings account. That's kind of where I go, and then I put into my personal travel account. I keep that going. So that's where that's got to go into for my own journey. So you just kind of having that kind of system, but there's no secrets in there. It's like anything. Whatever you keep a secret will come back and bite you.
It will come out, and that usually tends to be the case. It does come out eventually, and you know, so some of the people, you know, some I know a couple. You know, the guy has a secret account, and he just like a significant amount of money there, and the wife just doesn't know about it. And of course, you let them know that that's not healthy. It's not good. You cannot have true union and intimacy, that emotional and spiritual and mental intimacy with the secrets if there's a trust issue.
Exactly, and that's the key there, Irani. It's that if a person has a drink problem, you hide the drink because you don't trust that they're going to control themselves. Are you hiding your money because you're saying that your spouse is going to spend all the money and you don't trust? So you're saying that she's a spenderaholic and she's got an addiction to spending, or he's got an addiction to spending. If that's what you're saying, then there's a trust issue. And if the trust issue is real, don't hide the money. Help the spouse to get out of the issue that they're finding themselves in.
Yeah, I agree.
So that would be my take on it. I don't think it's healthy at all.
Well, it's not. I mean, when, and as we mentioned, when, because it's only and always a matter of when the spouse finally finds out the betrayal, or the betrayed feeling that he or she feels, to know that you have been hiding this from us, and possibly for good reasons, i.e., you're spending honey. So you think that this is the best reason. Well, as you said, this is where we sit down and we talk about things. We discuss things. Maybe we may need to even go for counseling, and get to the root of this. If you are not seeing what I'm saying and understanding, look, we can't just be spending all this amount of money, then maybe we need to call in a third party, i.e. a counselor, your pastor, to sort of mediate, because a marriage will just cannot grow. It just cannot grow like that with that sort of secrecy, especially in the area of finances and money. What happens? What happens if, God forbid, you have money hidden away somewhere, and something is to happen to you, i.e. death? Let's just say that. What happens? That other party don't even have a clue that you have some thousands of pounds in some hidden place, that they will need, that the family may need. You have young kids, or funeral arrangements, and all everything that comes with that. And that's just one simple practical example as to why is this just not good to be hiding money. It's better having a conversation, having the discussion, getting the counseling. And one of the things I'm starting to kind of like process in my mind, and I was talking to my wife about it recently, is incorporating financial sort of, no, not that one, but incorporating financial planning and management and money period within premarital counseling. Because as you said, usually you don't really get that part of marital counseling, pre-marriage counseling.
Definitely. So when Bex and I do any premarital counseling, we always have a whole session on finances.
Yeah.
And we basically do the whole thing around budgeting, understanding finances, culture of finance. Where do we understand finance? Like all of us here, every one of us has a cultural understanding of finances. See, all of us that get married, we have our family cultures that we come from.
Yeah.
And then we come together. When we come together, and if we don't have a discussion on what our new culture going forward is, that's when you have problems. So premarital counseling with finances, one of the main sessions in it, is essential. And I think if we don't do that, we're doing a disservice to people getting married. And I think we should also do post-marriage, post-wedding financial planning. We should do first baby financial sessions, second baby houses. We should do everything we can to help church understand God's plan for stewarding finances.
Yeah.
Because money, we should never work for money. Money must work for us. When we become slaves to finances, we're going counter God's plan for humanity.
Yeah.
We were called to have dominion. We were called to live above. And when we are in debt, when we are living in debt to others because of poor teaching and poor management, then it is who's teaching us to do that. So we've got to bring that in. We've got to bring that in 100%.
Yeah. So, as you said, we are called to dominate, to rule, to govern. But sometimes in the marriage, we want to dominate and the spouse in the area of finance, especially.
Yeah.
That's another huge bit right there.
And that's why. Sorry to cut you, Ronnie. Just to say, that's why premarital counseling is so important. I have a way of having a conversation with people before they talk about marriage to put them off getting married, to see if they really want to get married. If you marry someone who's got no clarity of future vision, no clarity of relationship with Jesus, no clarity of what finances are going to look like, you're marrying somebody who has no idea what they're going to be like in the marriage. So before you even get to the premarital counseling phase, read a book by T.D. Jakes called Before You Do. If you're out there and you're still looking to get married, buy this book, Before You Do by T.D. Jakes. And in that book, there's a whole bunch of questions that he asks you to think through before you even consider going into a relationship. So my advice to people, and maybe we should be doing this with the youth, before you even get into those kind of relationships, know what questions you're going to ask of your spouse. That's going to determine whether you're going to continue the relationship or not.
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So I just think we need to be arming our church to be smart in picking God's partner for you.
Yeah.
Just because they're the only one doesn't mean they are the one.
Yeah. I like that. You know, I have here, so divorce online cites the number one reason for couples being divorcing or separating, the other party being bad at money. They're the top 10 list sort of thing. They cite couples falling out of love. Number two, the other party being bad at money, big spenders, etc., etc. And number 9 as well is also pertaining to money. Money issues. The person is financially reckless, overspending, money mismanagement. That's divorce online. Then we have marriage.com, 10 most common reasons why people divorce or separate. The number 1 was infidelity, and we talked about this earlier on, or extramarital affair. And number 2, you guessed it, trouble with finances. And you can just go, you go on and on and on. The money, the finances are always at least in the top 3, mostly top 2, but sometimes even appearing twice on the same list. You know, that says something, because
Definitely.
Melvin, this problem doesn't discriminate. It happens to the saved as well as the unsaved. So we supposed to be, you know, understanding as God's people, as Christians, we supposed to be understanding, you know, stewardship. How do we steward God's money? How do we make money work for us? You know, we are not slaves to money. Money should be working for us, etc., etc. But it seems like, you know, we are in the same boat when it comes to that type of thing.
Yeah, I think it comes back to focus. What is our focus? What is our vision? What is it? Seeking first God's kingdom. I think it comes down to that, you know. It's a conviction. It's a choice. We've got to be living by God's conviction.
Yeah.
If you have a desire to buy a big house, but God's call and conviction is for you to be a missionary in a different country, gotta follow God's call, right? Or if you choose to follow the house, that's cool. But you know clearly it's not God's call. Well, that's where your finances is gonna go. So it's having that combined vision, whether you're Christian or not Christian, having a vision that's saying, what is our combined value? What is our combined conviction? What is it that we both want to do? Do we want our children to grow up in this area or not? If we don't, because we don't like the schools, then we need to move to a different area that's got better schools. Again, this is all relative, better schools. And then it's going, right, if we want to do that, we need to have more money for a bigger house.
Yeah.
If you're saying, I want to have 2 children, great. But you're going for 3, you gotta upgrade your car, you gotta upgrade the house, you gotta think more space, you gotta upgrade the fridge. So all of these decisions have a financial impact on it.
Yeah.
If God is the boundary line and the hedge around all of us, and you both communicate, you both make it clear what your vision is, I think you're alleviating a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I want to say is personality types. Don't discount the fact that personality types have an impact on spending. And for some people, and also gift. If you've got the spiritual gift of giving, and you're married to someone who's a good budgeter and thrifty, that's going to be a recipe for frustration. So create those margins to be able to live. The allowances, the generosity budget, all of that kind of stuff fits into helping people with different personality types to outwork their financial vision and desires.
Amen.
Yeah.
Well, guys, this is your time to ask some of your questions. So we want to stop and just ask, do you have any questions for Pastor Melvin here? Maybe you heard something, you want a bit of clarification, or you want to just, ask a question or add something. This is your time. Melvin, I think we have covered quite a lot, and guess what? There's still so many things yet still to cover that we can't go through all of them tonight, of course. But yeah.
I think I want to add something in there, or something I really enjoyed or liked, on the simplicity of the marriage, that sometimes we just complicate it so much. And I like the way that Mary was saying, it's just, to be the unity, just to be one and to work together towards one goal. So then we just overcomplicate things like, oh, my money, your money, what should I do? But if we are together, if we work in love and see, okay, we are working towards this goal. Okay, now we both need to do something to get to this point. As he said, if we want 2 children, okay, let's think about a bigger fridge, a bigger house. Both of us, not me, because we can get to a point of being selfish, like me, my money, my things, my wishes, my everything. But once we get to this agreement of getting married, we are one.
Yeah.
And also I think is the point of being grateful, for what we have, because we can always be thinking about, oh, I want some more money, I want more money, I want more money. But what about if you never get enough? What about if you just right now are grateful, be grateful for what you have and be happy? And it's a conversation we had with my husband this morning, and he said something really that it changed my mindset, and I think it just made me feel very secure, because I told him, we are happy, our marriages, we are in a point of like, we are grateful for anything we have. And then he said, you know why we're happy? And he says, because we know who our provider is, If we don't have anything that happens around, we know who our provider is. So we don't trust in money. Money is not our Lord. Money is just something that we need. Of course, we need to, to buy things or to give, to bless. But the Lord is our provider. And then so that in that way we can be happy, just being like, oh Lord, thank you for what I have. Thank you, because as the testimony that Mary was telling us, even we didn't have, but we had people bringing food. In South Africa, there was food outside our house. The Lord provides.
Amen.
So that's something as well, that as a marriage we have to be grateful, and just knowing that, oh wow, we are one and the Lord is our provider. Just relax.
I'll share this testimony, and maybe you can think of questions, guys. Feel free to ask. When Bex and I got married, we had one salary. We didn't have a house to live in, but we were seeking God's kingdom first. We knew we needed to get married. We got married. We didn't have a house to stay. We didn't have a car. Bex had a car, it was broken. We never saw how to stay in. We didn't have furniture, nothing. We walked down the aisle not knowing where we were going to stay. But we were convinced that God had called us to get married, and we were married at the same time. We needed to get married, and we both had the same vision, same heart, everything, and it was all God's call for us. And someone, so we, someone bought us a house. They paid for our deposit.
Wow.
Wow.
Bought us a house. We just paid the mortgage. No, not even the mortgage. We just paid the bills from my salary until Beck started working. The day when we walked into, when we left our wedding reception to go back to the house, Bex's old car that was broken was replaced with a brand new car, direct from the Vauxhall garage, with balloons in it saying happy
Wow.
wedding day. And one time we didn't have a stove. We first got married, we didn't have a stove. And I saw a stove that was silver, and it matched our fridge. And I wanted that one. We didn't have the money. We went in church. They took an offering for us we didn't know. And the money we got from the offering was the exact amount we needed for that stove that was the same color that I wanted for the fridge, that matched the fridge and the bin. I tell you all of that stuff because I want to say this. When you focus in on God's purpose, He will look after you when you're walking in His footsteps and following His call. But I can tell you times when we had no money. I can tell you times when we had 7 quid in the bank. We're still following God's call, but the obedience was still pulling us through.
Yeah.
One day we had 7 quid in the bank, and then the next day we had a check for £1,000. But the day when we had 7 quid in the bank, that was a hard day. It was a tough day. And I was questioning God's call and questioning God and everything. But the next day when you get a letter in the post and someone says, we want to bless you with £1,000, it's a big deal. So,
Wow.
but it's a journey of obedience, and it's a
Yeah.
journey of faith. It's a journey of going together in faith. When God calls you to do something together, and that's why for those of you who are not married yet, if your spouse is umming and ahhing about the call of God on your lives, and I'm not saying call of God to go into ministry, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the call of God for you to be ministers of the gospel, the broader sense of it. You have to put the brakes on and go, we need to be together in our vision before we step anywhere. That's my opinion.
Amen.
All right. Please, for those of you that are still thinking about it, you've got time.
You've got time.
You've got time.
So yeah, any questions, guys? Well, usually they say, Melvin, when you give a talk and nobody have any questions, it's because you have said everything perfect and everybody understands everything, or you did a really bad job and nobody understands anything.
I think there's a question. I think there's a question from Andrew.
There's no.
I think
Andrew. Go on, Andrew.
I'm here. Hang on. Turn my camera on. Here I come.
Yeah, you go.
Okay, it's more an observation than a question about tonight.
Yeah.
We're talking about the finances before and to plan before you get married and everything. It's very good, very correct. I'll give you an example. My parents, they've been married now for 47 years. They've always had separate bank accounts, but they've always communicated. I think the main thing in a marriage, as well as everything else, of course, is to communicate, to talk and about everything, of course, plan. But you can do your own thing, maybe, but you have to communicate. Communication is a big thing, I think. Just a little observation I've thought of from hearing what we've spoken about tonight.
Yeah.
Thanks, Andrew. Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dalton.
I'm here.
Yes. Communication, I can't stress enough. And it's something we hear time and time again. Our parents told us, our grandparents told us, we hear it, and we hear it all over. But it's because it's so true.
Exactly.
That communication is really, really important. It's vital to our marriage. You just can't get away from that.
Sure. I mean, like I say, my mum and dad have been married for 47 years now, and they've always been very open with each other because of the communications we're saying. So yeah, it's a vital thing, the relationship of marriage. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, I want to show this. Show the picture. We have. Oh, hold on.
Which one? The book?
No, this the younger one.
Okay.
Good. All right, so
Oh, no.
this is Mr. Melvin, Pastor Melvin, and his wife, Bex. How old were you there, Pastor?
I was 22, 23.
22, 23, young love.
Yeah, and Bex was only, no, I was 22. She was 18, 19.
Wow.
See, now if the mics were on mute, this is where you would have heard the
Oh.
But yeah, anyone noticing my
Oh.
cool Kangol cap, my
Yes,
Samuel L. Jackson hat?
we see the Kangol, we see it. We
I
see.
think Mr. Arthur had a few of them, back in the day.
And yeah, let's see them now. And this is them now, 20 years after, still in love. And again, Andrew, where were you?
Andrew.
There you go.
Better late than never.
Yeah.
Lovely. Be sure to to let her know how sorry we are that she wasn't able to be here with us, but we do wish her a speedy recovery.
I will
Definitely.
definitely. Thank you.
And so we want to highlight a book every week. Every week we sort of so give a couple of resources. So of course, Melvin mentioned already T.D. Jakes' book. What's the name of it again, Melvin? Before you say I do?
Before you do.
Before you do. Before you do. And then we have one here as well. The 5 Money Personalities. Now, this one's interesting. This is really interesting, but I don't want to get into it because we've already passed our time, I think. So this is another book, really, really helpful. And was there another one, Mano?
Yes.
And there was another one. First comes love, then comes money. Another very, very interesting book. And this couple is known as the money couple. So they deal with all things pertaining to money within marriage. And of course, they are coming from a biblical standpoint. So which is really going to be helpful to your marriage, your current marriage, or if you haven't been married yet, you are going to learn a lot. These are some of the things that I wish I knew before I got married. So we have come to the end. If there isn't any further questions, Melvin, we want to say a heartfelt thank you so much for being with us tonight, sharing your pearls of wisdom. We are so grateful, and we pray God's blessing upon you, upon your family, your lovely wife. We declare favor, God's continued grace upon you guys, and may you continue to be a blessing wherever you all go. Whoever you speak to, may God's hands be upon you guys always.
Thanks. Thank you so much.
So, guys, we want to say good night, so you can unmute yourselves. Why don't we unmute and just give Pastor